All right. I want to wish you a very, very good day for those of you that are attending the Workforce Development Conference 2020. I want to extend a very happy hello to you. This is Kevin Wayne Johnson, and I am one of your facilitators. I will be walking you through your workshop topic. It's titled Becoming a Person of Influence. This is a topic that I've taught to many, many frontline, mid-level, and senior level leaders in government, state and federal, corporations, nonprofits, academia, and even in faith-based organizations. You have there in front of you a copy of your participant guide, and we will be walking you through that guide. You'll see there's a lot of content and a lot of narrative there for you. For your learning, for your career development, for your personal development as well. But equally important, I will be walking you through a number of the blanks that are on your page, and I'll just have you to take your pen or your pencil or any other marker and just begin the process of walking you through that and fill in the blanks. And this session will be about 50 to 55 minutes. And by way of introduction, I come to you after 34 years of total service with the federal government. As a mid-level and senior level leader, I absolutely loved my career. I had great champions and great sponsors behind me. Only a couple of hiccups during those 34 years, and I transitioned my skills into another organization and kept going forward. But learning to become a person of influence is tied into both your personal and your professional leadership skills. Influencing people is really what it's all about. It's relational. It's showing that you care and you value people, that you're a good listener, you're a good communicator, because you send a message through your influence that people that you are entrusted to lead actually want to follow you. And that has everything to do with how you treat them, how you acknowledge them, how you recognize them. And so becoming a person of influence is ongoing and it's continual. It never stops. And what's interesting is that our influence is either positive or negative. There's very little wiggle room in between. So I'm going to ask you, if you'd be so kind, to go ahead and turn to your contents page. Your table of contents, you'll see this session is broken out into 4 different parts: session 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, for the first few minutes, we will spend our time walking through an inventory, or is what I call a self-introspection. You'll have an opportunity to look at yourself as a leader, front level, mid-level, and senior level. Kind of look through the mirror at yourself to give you an idea and a barometer of where you are in terms of your current leadership skills and who you actually influence. And the reason we do that is because, quite frankly, before you look through the lens, you need to first look at the mirror. We need to look at ourselves to be self-aware and self-confidence and knowing ourselves, so we'll be more effective in leading others. And then the latter half of our time together, I will actually walk you through the word influence. We'll take a look at 10 characteristics, attributes, behaviors, and mannerisms that we should always have on display as leaders that will help us with our influence. Okay, on that note, let's go right ahead. Open up your book, your participant guide, and turn over to session number 1. And I want to start out by just sharing with you that leadership is influence. Just put that right there in the blank. Leadership is influence. It's going to be either negative or positive. There's very little room in between, but it will be all about being able to influence people. That's really what leadership is all about. And there in the middle of the page, you'll see where it says increasing your influence is the same as or equal to increasing your leadership. So as your ability to influence goes up, your ability to be a much, much better leader goes up. Because now, not only are you building good camaraderie with your team, but you're also building a lot of confidence amongst yourselves. Take a look at the quote there at the bottom of the page by J.R. Miller. It says, There have been meetings of only a moment which have left impressions for life, for eternity. No one can understand that mysterious thing we call influence, yet every one of us continually exerts influence, either to heal, to bless, to leave marks of beauty, or to wound, to hurt, to poison, to stain others. So ideally, your influence will be positive and not negative, but it's going to be one or the other. And the question is, which one will it be? Turn over to the very next page there in your participant guide. So we have two goals for this workshop, two goals for this particular seminar. And that is number one, to help you to better understand influence. And number two, to help you increase your influence with others. Understand influence and to help you to increase your influence with others. Let's walk through these 6 questions as it relates to our inventory and where we are, and quite frankly, where we want to go. So this is the part where we look in the mirror, and then in just a few minutes, we'll dive into the actual content. So your influence inventory begins with question number 1. Question number 1 is, who do I influence? Who do I influence? And the principle here is, as a leader, I attract who I am, not who I want. Big difference. You're going to attract who you are, not necessarily who you want. So take just a couple of minutes and write down right there in your participant guide, write down the top 3 characteristics of a person that you want on your team. Just the top 3. For example, I'll share with you mine. Number 1 for me is trust. I've got to be able to trust everybody on my team. Number 2 is character. I have to know that the people on my team are consistent and reliable because they demonstrated over time that they have character. And number 3 is honesty. I must be surrounded by people who are absolutely honest. Those are my 3 characteristics. So just take another minute or so and just jot those down, because we're asking the question, who do you influence? And over on the very next page there in your participant guide, you also have another opportunity as a part of the who. We're asking you to circle just one of the 2 responses. For example, do you influence leaders or followers? Do you influence doers or thinkers? How about big picture or little picture people? All the way down. And if you would, just go ahead and continue and just circle one or the other, not both, even though you may feel like you can influence both. But for the purpose of this inventory, and we're asking you the who, just circle just one. And while you're doing that, I'll help you to understand the difference between the last one, the eagle and the turkey. So both of these are considered birds from the same family, but an eagle is diametrically opposed to a turkey in terms of its day-to-day operation. Turkeys tend to travel in a bunch, and they tend to be confined to the land because they can't fly, but they do have wings. Eagles, on the other hand, have a long, wide wingspan. They typically fly alone, and they typically fly at very, very high altitudes. As a matter of fact, I would submit to you that eagles travel at the same altitude as helicopters fly, and even higher. So they're from the same family. They're both birds. They both have wings. They both have feathers, but they're much, much different in terms of their day-to-day operation. So again, just circle one of the 2. And again, we're taking an introspection. We're looking at ourselves in terms of who do we influence. Question number 2, how do I influence is the question. And the principle here is how I influence people will determine how many, how long, and how effectively I influence them. How many, how long, and how effectively I influence them. Very, very important, very, very key as it relates to how. Now, let's take a look at these, what I call 7 different methods of influence. These are 7 different methods. Number 1 is force, and we're going to go from worst to first. So the first one is force. See, through force, there is no choice in the decision. The second one is intimidation, my way or the highway. The third one is manipulation. There's a winner and a loser. The fourth one is positional. We follow because we have to. Number 5 is exchange. In an exchange, we both win something. Over on the next page, number 6 is persuasion. We follow because we want to. Now the environment has been set. We actually want to perform and we want to be productive. And again, we went from worst to first. So number 1 is, number 7, respect. We follow because of the request and respect for the influencer. And this is exactly why leadership is relational. Leadership is all about influence, nothing more and nothing less, because good leaders are able to galvanize their team to the point where they want to produce and they want to perform because they know they're working for a good leader that cares, that values, that supports, that advocates, and that really is there to push them and to develop them. When people know that in their heart, they'll do just about anything for us as leaders. Question number 3. This is part of our inventory. How many do I influence? So here's the principle. As a leader, the number of people who follow is based upon my level of influence. Everyone influences someone, but few people influence a lot of people. So we all influence someone, but there's only a handful of us that influence a lot of people, i.e., the president of the United States, or perhaps a governor of a state, or maybe a chief executive officer or a chief operating officer of a company that employs 500,000 people. But outside of that, although we do influence someone, very few influence a lot. Take a look here in the very middle of the page under question number 3. And the difference between the 2 lines above, number 1 is your leadership potential, and number 2, your leadership level. The difference between those 2, your potential and your level, is determined by number 1, leadership, number 2, willingness to change, and number 3, desire to grow. Now, number 2 is very interesting, and we'll get into it in the latter half of this particular session, because change is something that most people aren't comfortable with, they don't want. But as a leader, we have to walk them through, because when it's all said and done, there's nothing constant but change. Things are changing around us all the time, but still, because of the human element, most people don't like it. They don't want to deal with it. Question number 4, as a part of our inventory. When do I influence others? And the principle is our value and significance rises when we influence others at a time when it is needed most. That's very key and very important. Look at the quote at the bottom of the page by Sir Winston Churchill. He says, "There comes a special moment in everyone's life, a moment for which that person was born. That special opportunity, when he seizes it, will fulfill his mission, a mission for which he is uniquely qualified. In that moment, he finds greatness. It is his finest hour. Oftentimes, our ability and significance in influencing others is all around the right time. The timing is really, really perfect. So when we influence others is tied to that point in a person's life when they need it most. Look over on the very next page there in your participant guide, and you'll see at the very top that we have a brief, short paragraph about Napoleon. And I wanted to share a couple of insights with you here on this page. And the first one is this, is that leaders are readers. The more we read both nonfiction and fiction, it stimulates our mind. It keeps our mind going. It gives us great thoughts and gives us great energy. It's very, very key. And also leaders sense, we're able to discern teachable moments. Number two, breakthrough places. And number three, catalyst times. Because again, we're talking about when do we influence? This is very key, very, very important. Teachable moments, breakthrough places, catalyst times. Now, breakthroughs occur in people and organizations when they, number one, they hurt enough that they have to change. They learn enough that they want to change, and they receive enough that they are able to change. So this is very, very important. The when is very important. And they all are, quite frankly, but timing has a lot to do with helping people reach their potential and meeting them at their need in terms of their personal and professional development. Question number 5 is why? Why do I influence others? And the principle here is why you do something will ultimately determine what you do. So this goes into our decision-making and problem solving every day as leaders. Why we do something is directly and ultimately tied into what we do. Right under that, it says right motives are crucial to people because leadership functions on the basis of trust. Goes back to one of my 3 characteristics of people that I'm looking for on my team. Very key, excuse me, and very, very important. At the very bottom of this page, you'll see where continual wrong motives is a result of, and here's that second characteristic that I built in, character. So right motives are crucial to people because leadership functions on the basis of trust, but continual wrong motives is a result of bad character. And you remember the type of people that I would like on my team and in my organizations are people that I can trust, have character, and who are honest. Makes a huge difference, not only in the life of the leader, but how we go about influencing others as well. Here's question number 6, and this is the last question in our inventory piece, where we're taking a introspection, if you would. We're looking through the mirror first before we can look through the lens. We look through the mirror, we can see ourselves, then we can look through the lens and we can see others. Question number 6 is where? Positionally, where do I influence others? And right here in the middle of the page, there's a reminder. It says, remember, the position doesn't make the leader makes the position. So true. We lead from the heart, not necessarily from our title and from our position. So here's some leadership mistakes here that are often made by people at the mid-level. Now, at the front level, these mistakes are made because we're learning and we're growing and we're developing. At the senior level, sometimes these mistakes are made because we're human, or we may have the wrong data, or incorrect information, or even outdated information. But typically in the middle, when we've made our transition from frontline and we're looking toward senior level, and we're entrusted with more and more and more responsibility and accountability, it's not unusual that these type of mistakes happen. So these are mistakes that we tend to make as leaders in the mid-level of our career. Number one is this: if I'm not on top, I can't lead. Leadership is influence, not position. So we can all lead from right where we are. Number two, when I get to the top, then I will learn to lead. No, no, no. We're being promoted to the next level because we've already demonstrated that we have the potential at the level we are. So you're not going to wait to learn how to lead when you get to the top. It's going to start long before you get there. Number three, if I were on top, everyone would follow. And not true. Everyone's not going to follow. If you're one of those mean bosses, rude and divisive, and not really easy to work with and be around, trust me, people will begin to vote with their feet. And one day you're going to look behind you and there won't be any followers. So be very, very careful. Don't believe that just because you get to the top, everyone would follow. That is not the case. And then number four, when I get to the top, I will be able to do anything. No, no, no. As a matter of fact, I would submit that the higher you go, the more of a servant you become in terms of helping others get to their desired goals, help them to achieve their dreams and their aspirations. We're in more of a service mode because by the time we get to the top, we've already demonstrated that we can do the work, but we're not there to do the work. We're there to take care of the people who we entrust to do the work. That's the big difference. All right. So thank you all so much for your participation and for your attention there. Again, that was our leadership inventory. Again, an opportunity to look through the mirror. Now we get a chance to look through the lens. Let's take a look at some of these 10, what I call strategies, principles, nuggets, and tools that you can add to your toolbox that will definitely help you along your journey. Again, regardless of your current level, and even if you're right now in the space of being a project lead or a team lead and don't have the official title as a leader or supervisor, these principles still apply. And these tools can still go into your toolbox. And these are some good strategies for you to put in place as you're leading people. They will appreciate it, and you'll find that you being able to lead others will be that much more enjoyable, and it won't be as challenging and as difficult because you'll have the attention of your people. So over on the very next page, at the very top, it says influence insights. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in and move right along. The first one is leadership is influence. Okay. Nothing more, nothing less. Leadership is influence. Number two is our influence with others is usually not in all areas. That's why we need a team. That's why we need good people to be with us so that we can work together and be in collaboration and cooperation and partnership. That's really what leadership is all about. Over on the next page, number three, with influence comes responsibility. And you can also add to that accountability and visibility. Because when you move into these leadership positions, there's an expectation that you be able to deal with accountability, and you're going to be very visible in addition to the responsibility. You'll see that there are 3 bullet points. The third bullet point is that too many leaders want the perks of leadership without paying the price of leadership. So don't be that type of leader. The perks do come with the territory, but don't let that be the driving force. And remember, never stop working hard and working diligently to be a great leader, and that is helping others to develop. Number 4 is this: my influence with others is either positive or negative. You heard me say that a little bit later. There's very little wiggle room in between. It's usually one or the other. So always be mindful of that. Your influence can grow. Absolutely it can, because you can grow and you should be growing. And then number 6 is people of positive influence add value to others. Back in 1947, Jackie Robinson himself was selected to be the first African American to integrate the Major League Baseball, and he ended up with the Brooklyn Dodgers in New York. And he said, a life isn't significant except for its influence on our lives. And he was so spectacular and so humble and so good at what he did that he was able to influence the powers to be, to open up the doors for more players of more ethnicities and giving more people opportunities. And that's how he went about adding value, not only to the Brooklyn Dodgers, but to Major League Baseball. Over on the very next page at the very top, we add value to people when, number 1, we truly value people. Number 2, we know and relate to what they value. Number 3, we make ourselves more valuable because we're a resource to those that we've been entrusted to lead. And then last but not least, we do the things that we value. So those things that we value that are close to us, those are the things that we do. And that's what leaders do. So I'm going to ask you, not necessarily now, but at the end of our session together, when you have an opportunity, because this participant guide does belong to you, as an assignment, I'm going to ask you to take the time and answer these 6 questions that are in your guide. This is information for you. Use your favorite pen or pencil or marker. And when you have an opportunity, just go back and answer these questions. It'll help you on your leadership journey, and it will help you with your own personal and professional development. All right, let's go ahead and dive into the word influence now. Over on the next page under session 2, at the very top, it says integrity with people. Integrity with people. So point number 1 is this: an influencer has integrity with people. Integrity is just the same as just keeping your word. Be true to your word. Don't say one thing and do something else because it causes confusion. Just be true to your word, because at the very bottom of the page, you'll see that trust is the glue that holds people together. At the very top of the very next page, you'll see there was a survey of about 1,300 executives. This was a few years ago, but they were asked the question, what quality do you desire most in your team members? And 75% said integrity. So 3 out of 4 said integrity. Very important, very key, and means a great deal. Here in the middle of the page, you'll see here that integrity issues for influencers. So these are just some questions to consider within your organization, on your team, in your company. And the first one is, as it relates to integrity, is, does your organization have good written values? Are they written down somewhere, say in the human resources department or in the EEO department? Number 2, do the leaders practice and model them for others? Number 3, do I place the interest of my people above my own? Number 4, am I accountable to others for my actions? These are just some integrity issues. And of course, number 5 is already written out for you, but since I know myself best, Do I like who I am? That's pretty important to take a liking to yourself. That's pretty important. Over on the very next page, we see here that an influencer, number two, in addition to having integrity, a person of influence nurtures people. Now, nurturing people is just a way that we show that we care for people. We're not there to baby them or micromanage them or to spend too much time looking over their shoulder, but we're there to nurture them. Many leaders love their position more than their people. When that happens, they soon lose their position. Right under that, we see that few leaders love their people more than their position. And when that happens, leaders strengthen their position. Look at the notes on nurturing people at the very bottom. Nurturing people does not mean needing people, needing. Nurturing people does mean commitment to people, and nurturing does mean loving people. Now, I'm talking about the type of unconditional love where we show compassion and empathy and care and that we value other people. That's the type of nurturing we're talking about. Very, very important, very, very key in the workplace, because we have so many different people in the workplace at the same time, up to 5 different generations in the workplace: traditionalists, baby boomers, Gen X, millennial, and now Gen Zs are making their way into the workplace, and we're all there together at the same time trying to figure out the best way to communicate with each other and solve problems and make decisions. It's not always easy, but it's definitely doable because we're learning on how to be a person of influence, becoming a person of influence. Over on the very next page, you'll see number 4, also under nurtures, is nurturing people does mean lifting people to a higher level. Very key and very important. I always remember all the way back in high school, my 11th grade teacher, Mrs. Atkins, my English teacher, she helped me in a time of need where I didn't make the varsity basketball team in the 11th grade because I had just relocated from Virginia Beach, Virginia to Richmond, Virginia, because my father had just retired from the military. And I'm trying to make a varsity sports team, and the coach didn't know me, and I didn't know the coach, and the players didn't know me, and I didn't know the players. And at 16 years of age, you're not thinking about what all that means. You're just thinking, I'm good enough to make the team. And I was doing very, very well in my English class, and Mrs. Atkins had kind of taken a liking to me in terms of my effort and the great work that I was doing, and English just came naturally to me. And she made a suggestion that although I didn't make the basketball team, that I could still go to the basketball coach and let him know that I would be available to call the games in the gymnasium, sitting behind the microphone, announcing the home team, announcing the guest team, and doing a play-by-play of all the basketball games. It was her suggestion, not mine, because I wasn't thinking about it. She saw something in me that I couldn't see. She was nurturing me. Now, I didn't know that she had already had a conversation with the basketball coach. I didn't know that. But sure enough, when I went to have the conversation with the coach says, yes, that would work. And the rest is history. That kind of got me started on a career of teaching and training and speaking, which is, even till this day, this is what I do. But it didn't stop there, because the football team was in the same situation. The person that previously called the home games for both basketball and football had graduated, and there was an opening, and Mrs. Atkins had a conversation with the football coach, and she urged me to go have a conversation with the football coach, and the football coach said yes. And before you know it, I'm in the press box behind the microphone calling the home football games, including the homecoming. And it's all because my 11th grade teacher saw the importance of nurturing one of her students that she knew had some great potential, but at 16 couldn't necessarily see it in himself. Her name is Mrs. Atkins, and I still remember her to today and use that example quite a bit. All right, number 3 in the word influence is faith. Faith in people. So here on the very next page, you'll see that assets make things possible and people make things happen. And Ralph Waldo Emerson, his quote here in the middle is that every person is entitled to be valued by their best moments. At the bottom of the page, in leading others, there are 3 feelings that we cannot possess in terms of having faith in people. These 3 feelings we can't have. The first one is fear, because if we are afraid of people, we cannot confront them. Number 2 is dislike. If we dislike people, we should not lead them. And then number 3 is contempt. If we look down on people, we will not value them. So we don't want to ever show that we don't have faith in our people. At the top of the next page, it is wonderful when people believe in their leader. It is more wonderful when the leader believes in their people. And these 4 here on the bottom of the page or in the middle of the page, borrowed beliefs have no power. We become outside what we believe on the inside. So true. Lack of belief in people hurts both the leader and the people. And then, of course, number 4 is already spelled out for you. I'm hoping this is helping. I usually take a little bit more time to cover this material, but we have just the 1 hour together. So, but the good news is that you have your participant guide and you can always refer back to it. Number 4, the L in influencer. The L is listens. An influencer listens to people. Now, let me spell out this word ladder for you, Ladder. So in this word ladder, the L stands for look. The A stands for ask. The first D stands for don't interrupt. And the second D stands for don't change the subject. And this is all about being a better listener. One of the most challenging things that we have as a leader is being a good leader, good listener. Don't interrupt and don't change the subject. The next one is emotion. And then the R is for responsive. Be a responsive listener. Respond to what they're saying. That way they know that we're actually engaged and that we're actually listening to what they have to say. So good listeners look at the speaker, ask questions. More importantly, ask open-ended and thought-provoking questions to reduce the number of times you'll get the one-word answer. Don't interrupt. Don't change the subject. Check your emotions and be a responsive listener. Now, at the very top of the very next page, we have what we call the 4H questions to become a better listener. And the first one is, what is their heart? Second one is, what is their hope? What is their hurt? And then last, but certainly not least, how can I help? What is their heart, or what's on their heart? What is their hope? What are they hoping for? What is their hurt? What is that thing that's deeply bothering them? And how can I help? All right. So just like we did a little bit earlier, we're going to do the same. We're going to ask you to take the time after this workshop, after this seminar, and there are 8 questions there at the bottom of the page. And it's just a quick quiz to identify where you are and your current listening skills. And then when you finish answering those 8 questions, you're going to add them up and you're going to come up with an answer. So if the answer is always, then you're going to give yourself 4 points. And if the answer is usually, you'll give yourself 3 points. and then 2 points for rarely, and give yourself 1 point even if the response is never. And answer all 8 of those questions. And if you score 26 or higher, then you're an excellent listener. If you score between 22 to 25, then you're a better than average listener. And if you score between 18 to 21, there's some room for improvement. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but as leaders, we always need some extra development and improvement. And if you score 17 or lower, I want you to give me a call or send me an email. We need to talk. All right, outstanding. Let's go over to number 5. Understands. That you in influencer is understands people. To understand the mind of a person, look at what he has achieved. To understand the heart of a person, look at what dreams he has of becoming. And Norman Wright is a gentleman that really studies this particular art in terms of understanding people. And he provides some insights relative to 2 ways or 2 reasons why relationships fail. 2 reasons why relationships fail. The first one is fear. Now, fear just stands for false expectations appearing real. And that's really all it is. And then, but number 2 is selfishness. That's why, as we started out this workshop, that I had you to take a look in the mirror, because looking in the mirror has us to take a look at ourselves before we look through the lens at other people. So selfishness and fear are 2 basic reasons why relationships fail. Over on the next page at the very top, here are some keys to understanding. Leading people by reading people. You will be able to discern what's on the mind of a person that you're leading as you go through this particular exercise. But the first one is background. Key to understanding other people is getting to know their background. The second one is personality. The third one is giftedness. Number 4 is keys. And what I mean by keys are what unlocks the potential of a person. It unlocks a closed door that a person can't seem to get through. And so that's what I'm referring to when I say keys. The other keys to understanding, number 5 is relationships. Number 6 is influences. Number 7 is context. And number 8 is attitude. And you have to see what others see. That's what relationship is all about. But before they will see what you see is all about leadership. And that's what this is all about. Being an influencer, a positive influencer, makes a big difference. When you have an opportunity there in your participant guide at the bottom of the page, I want you to think about an example of a successful leader who has influence, and just write down some different reasons as to why. It could be someone you know or somebody that you don't know. In terms of their example of being a successful leader, especially in the area of integrity, nurturing, faith, listening, and understanding. I'll give you a quick example. My person is Chick-fil-A, the leader of Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is a very popular and well-run business. They keep the families of their employees in mind, and they're in operation only 6 days a week. And they do very well. As a matter of fact, they outsell Kentucky Fried Chicken, who has 3 times as many outlets, and they're open 7 days a week. It's really amazing. It's an interesting case study on Chick-fil-A. So that's the example that I would use, but you can use any example. Right after the seminar is over with, just write it down there and just reflect on that. as we continue to move forward. On the next page, over under session 3, where it says enlarges people, that's exactly what number 6 is. So an influencer enlarges people, helps them to expand their scope and their territory. So success is knowing your purpose in life and growing to your maximum potential and sowing seeds that benefit others. Very important. How many of us remember Zig Ziglar? Zig Ziglar was a powerful motivational speaker, even up into his 70s, born in Mississippi, the son of a large family, and he found his way behind a microphone and onto a stage at some point in his life. But of all of the quotes that Zig Ziglar gave us over his life, one of the more important ones he gave was, "You'll always have everything in life that you want if you help enough people get what they want." And that's really what enlarging people is all about. It's a really powerful concept. And if you haven't heard any of his speeches, just Google his name, Zig Ziglar, and you'll be tremendously empowered is the right word when you hear him speak. He uses a combination of humor and statistics and data and personal stories and anecdotes to walk you through whatever the topic might be. And like I said, even into his 70s, he had as much energy and zeal and enthusiasm about his topics as people in their 20s. It's really amazing. Number 7 in the word influencer is navigates. Navigates for people. Think of what a navigator does. Reroutes, so GPS, gets us to the right place at the right time, using the shortest amount of distance between A and B. And that's what we are. That's what an influencer does. We're navigators. We navigate for people, because those who, there are those people who can see the problem ahead, but they know how to avoid it. There are those who can experience the problem and fix it. And then there are those who cannot see the problem or fix it, and they become overwhelmed. So that's why us as leaders, as influencers, we must be able to help people to navigate along the journey. A leader is one who sees more than others see. A leader is one who sees farther than others see. And a leader is also one who sees before others see. So we're thinking strategically, not necessarily tactically, as navigators. Again, think about what that GPS does on your phone or in your car. Depending on which one is more reliable, you're going to lean on that particular one. My car that I drive is 2015, and I don't necessarily want to spend $199 every year to upgrade. So I use my iPhone instead, which is always up to date. And more times than not, my iPhone will get me to my destination easier and quicker than trying to use the navigation system in my car. And that's what we do as a leader. It's a very interesting concept. We'll increase our influence by being a navigator. All right, number 8, the C in influencer is connect. So we're connectors. So credibility plus communication equals connection. Credibility plus communication equals connection. So here are some reasons, 10 reasons why people connect when they communicate. Number 1, it's all about relationships. Better relationships bring about better communication. Number 2 is sacrifice. Number 3 is insight. Number 4 is experience. Number 5 is abilities. Number 6 is intuition. Number 7 is character. Number 8 is humility. Number 9 is relevance. And then the last one is convictions. Number 10 is convictions. People listen because of each one of these areas. They listen because of relationships, because of sacrifice, because of insight, because of experience, abilities, intuition, character, humility, relevance, and convictions. This is why people listen. And we are connectors, because if we have credibility and we communicate well, that's how we end up with the connection. Now, at the very top of the next page, just think about people who you listen to. And just jot down just a couple of reasons that would really give a brief description as to why you listen to them. There's a reason why we listen to the people that we do. In my case, I listen to people who are friendly and approachable, because it speaks to the character of who they are. If you're not friendly, and if I'm not comfortable with approaching you, it's going to be kind of hard to connect with you and have communications with you. Very, very important. So here are 2 tips on how to connect with people. Number 1 is go to their world. What interests them? What makes them tick? What gets them up every day and gets going? And then number 2, communicate with them from the heart. Just share what's on your heart and share what's on your mind as well. And then this third one is, like I said a little bit earlier, find the key to their life. That key is what unlocks that door to their potential, or it unlocks the door because they don't have any other way of getting through it. And you and I have the key. Now, here's one more exercise that I'll have you to do as well. And in addition to the one on the previous page, the next one here is, think about a successful leader that has influence. And just describe some of the actions that you have seen that have taken place in terms of their success as an influence. And generally at this point, the example that I give is Southwest Airlines. Over the years, Southwest Airlines has influenced the entire aviation industry in terms of their customer service, being able to book flights online, the number of terminals now that Southwest is prominent at, even though they're based in Dallas, Texas. They are prominently displayed in terminals across the entire United States of America. Their flight attendants have a very, very pleasant demeanor. Oftentimes they have humorous activities that are going on to sort of heighten the comfort level of all of the passengers, and even the pilots oftentimes jump in it. And they always have an image at the front of the plane. They have an image of a heart, which is sending the message that we care about you as a customer. Very important and very key. That's just the example that I use. You probably have a different example, but it's something to think about. Now, at the top of the next page, the last E in influencer is empowers. So we empower others. Look at this famous sign here at Walmart. So through these doors pass ordinary people on their way to accomplish extraordinary things. We feel empowered when we walk into Walmart. It's really amazing. And so you have 10 questions there at the bottom of the page. These are questions when you get an opportunity that you can ask before you actually start the process of empowering others. Now, at the top of the next page, empowerment decisions I've made concerning an assistant. An assistant is somebody that's at the front level of the organization. So with this assistant, number 1, I determined not to know everything. I need to rely on them to help me out. Number 2, I determined not to know everything first. Just because I'm the leader, I don't have to demonstrate that I have it all. I have all the answers. Number 3, I determined not to become the primary source of communication. Number 4, I determined to let someone else represent me. Delegation is perfectly fine. And then number 5, I determined to stay with my key. How I go about unlocking, right? Very important. And then here, lastly on this page, empowerment means seeing the potential in an individual, saying words that encourage, equip, and empower, sharing your knowledge and experience and influence, and then showing or demonstrating, but showing to others your belief in and power given unto them. And then finally, last but not least, as we conclude our time together, number 10 is just simply this: reproduces others. A person of influence reproduces others, because there are a few things that I want to share with you in terms of your data and some of the tools that will go into your toolbox. 85% of leaders attract followers. So that's not the hard part. But 10% of leaders attract leaders, and 5% of leaders actually reproduce other leaders. So it won't be that difficult to attract followers, but it's more challenging to produce and reproduce other leaders. So here are some tips on how we can reproduce other leaders. Number 1 is model good leadership. Okay, we've been talking about that for the entire time. Number 2, provide leadership training. Number 3, provide leadership resources. Provide leadership experiences. And then last but not least, create a growth environment. Okay, and here is a growth environment. A growth environment is where others are ahead of you. Number 2, you are still challenged. Number 3, your focus is forward. Number 4, the atmosphere is affirming. Number 5, you are out of your comfort zone. That's where most of the growth comes, when you're out of your comfort zone. Number 6, you wake up excited. Number 7, failure is not feared. Number 8, you notice that others are growing. Number 9, there's a willingness to change. And then last but not least, growth is modeled and expected. Well, I hope this seminar has been value for you and very, very much worth your time. My time is up, and I thank you for yours. This is Kevin Wayne Johnson. It's been a pleasure to be with you. Becoming a person of influence is something that's ongoing, is continual, and is recurring. And I wish you all the best in your career development, regardless of what level you're at. And if there's anything at all that I can do to help and assist along the way, all of my contact information is available through the Workforce Development Conference 2020. Feel free to reach out. If I can answer any additional questions in terms of what we've covered, just let me know by email or go directly to the website, and I'll be more than happy to be there for you. All right, I thank you so much, and you all have a great and phenomenal conference. All the best. Bye-bye.